Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. We're back almost a week before the Premier League campaign begins, and so we should look at our predictions for top four and top six, actually, our relegation candidates, Golden Boot, European predictions, and much more. And with me today, we've got a full host of Jason, Arian, and Suraj. Welcome back, everyone, and we'll just get straight into it. The Premier League is going to start with a fantastic game for United against Leeds at Old Trafford, welcoming fans back for the first time, full Old Trafford for the first time since the Manchester Derby in March 2020. It's going to be a fantastic occasion. Hopefully, United can get off with a better start than they did to the last campaign, with the almost full pre-season for most of the players available. It should be a cracker of a game, and we'll see how that unfolds, but we'll talk about that more next week. This week, we're going to talk about our top four and top six predictions. Aaron, we'll get started. You and I both said that we think United should mount a serious title challenge this season. So do you see them finishing anywhere close to the City side that, they were 12 points ahead of them last season? So do you see that being closer, or do you see it being City again?
Well, I was fully prepared coming into this. As of like two days ago to say that United were going to win the league, but now I'm kind of sort of pegged down a little bit by their signing of Grealish and the potential of them signing Kane, which is looking kind of worryingly likelier by the day, with Kane just like refusing to show up for training. So it kind of means that I think he is going to go. He hasn't even given their new manager the chance to speak to them. I read yesterday, like he hasn't even contacted. So it seems to me like his mind is made up. So I was just looking at right before we started at a depth chart of City, where they have literally two first 11s that are probably better than about 16 teams in the league. So it's kind of frightening on paper when you think about it. And I tweeted the other day when Fabrizio confirmed that Grealish was going to them, that I still kind of believe that United could do it, but it is going to take like a near perfect, flawless season to do it with the strength that they have. And as far as I'm concerned, it just takes the pressure off United to win the league. Whereas I think if City didn't sign Grealish and maybe Kane, it's like, okay, well, United have strengthened so much that maybe they should be expected to win it now this season. But now I feel like we're kind of taking a step back, and it's like, well, City are going to be expected to walk it with the ridiculous strength of their squad. So it's like United are playing with free money this season until they can strengthen again next year, kind of thing. So I still think they could do it, and I think we've seen bigger giants crumble under pressure than what City are shaping up to be this season. But I'm definitely kind of adjusting my expectations when it comes to the league, because when it comes to the cups, it's a different story. But in the league, I think. I think City will be primed to take it. And do you want me to give my top four or top six?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just quickly add to that is that, like you say, we have seen bigger fish sort of get fried, really. But we've had that issue that City have been fantastic for years. They had a little dip in the 18-19 season, 19-20 when Liverpool won the title. But realistically, they have some ridiculous squad depth, but they've had that. And the thing is if they're going to sign spend 120 million on Kane and 100 million on Grealish, they're not going to have enough money to sort out the left back position, which is a bit of an issue. I don't really think Ben Mendy can play 38 games a season. I don't think Zinchenko's suited to playing that, because he's a midfielder. He's not really he's done very well, but he's not quite there. There was Nuno Mendes was talked about, but 50 million euros is going to be too much for them with the 220 they're planning on spending. But if they don't feel that, and Laporte also wants to leave, if they both go, that could be an issue for them. But then again, you never know with City. They could pass the team to death and play Mahrez at left back for a whole season and be fine, or something like that. But please carry on with your top four.
Yeah, so I have last minute change City at first, and I think United still, with the signings that they've made, I do expect them to take it close, because when I look at Varane and Sancho, I just see two players that will change some of those really disappointing dropped points from last season into wins. And it's it's just how it is because they're both game-changing players. So they kind of fill me with confidence. At third, I have Chelsea because I think that their depth is still just far better than anyone else's in the league at the moment. And if they sign Lukaku, for all of his flaws, he will get you goals in probably what 34 or 35 games out of the season. There's just a few games that he will struggle in, as the kind of narrative is against the top side. So I think for the system that Tuchel has in place, if Werner was scoring goals last season, they would have been very dangerous in the league. But it's just the fact that they had nobody that could put them away for them. So I do think that them thereabouts, if the season turns out that it's going to be City and then the best of the rest, I think United and Chelsea will have a close run in. At fourth, I have Liverpool. I think at full strength, their first 11 is still solid, but they sold Wijnaldum and they haven't replaced them. Shaqiri is about to leave, and that's taking away from their depth. So I do think that in terms of depth, they're not where they used to be. And they kind of have one very good functional 11. Nobody knows what Thiago is going to look like. What's Van Dijk going to look like? And now they have Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, and Konate, who all three of them are very fragile. So if they end up getting rid of Kabak, which is the rumor, they're going to have three center backs that are very prone to injury. So you just never know. One injury could cripple their season all over again. But I do think that they'll have enough to be in the top four, but just about. I'm not really as optimistic about their chances as some of their fans, but that is their job, I guess. In fifth, I have Tottenham. That might be a bit of a left field suggestion, but I do think that Nuno Espirito Santo is a very good manager, and I think if they sell Kane and they reinvest it into a striker of Jimenez's mold, he can set them up very well, and they do have the personnel there. And if he can rejuvenate a couple of careers over there at Spurs, I do think that they could be in good stead to shake things up. I don't think they're quite good enough in terms of their squad for a top four, but I do think they can be up there. And in sixth, I have Leicester. And I would have had Leicester fifth, but they're having a lot of centre-back issues at the moment. They have Johnny Evans that's hurt. Fofana is probably going to be out for the season with fractured fibula, as happened yesterday. So they're going to need to reinvest. And I read somewhere yesterday that they wanted to invest that money somewhere else, but now it's kind of like their top priority will be signing a new centre-back. So I do think that they can be. They're still strong enough in terms of firepower by far. But they will need to look into bringing in a new center back, because defensively, I think, is where, even with Fofana and Evans fully fit, it's still not their strongest part of the field. So it's going to be interesting what they do. But I still believe that all six teams that I've mentioned here, and there's probably two more, are stronger than Arsenal. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting set. I think Tottenham obviously playing European Conference, where it's not going to be as competitive as the Europa League, which isn't as competitive as the Champions League, obviously. So it works on domino effect, but they're going to be playing week in, week out. They've got a relatively decent squad, realistically. So it was almost a shock that they underperformed so badly last season. You'd expect them to win the European Conference with the teams in it. I mean, I've hardly heard of any of them really. There's a few obviously quite well known, but it's you'd expect them to win it, and you'd expect them to sort of be able to compete in the Premier League as well. They do have a little bit of an advantage in that sense, but like you said, if they shell out, or they get 120 million for Harry Kane and spend it wisely with the new director of football that they've got in there, is already making some decent deals with Christian Romero. Looks like a good centre-back. I think he'll probably do quite well for them. And they've got a new goalkeeper as well that I think is going to keep Lloris on his toes. But we'll see how it goes. I think Tottenham could be an interesting one. Leicester, like you say, I mean, they've got a great team. Maddison could leave. I don't see it happening, but he could leave in theory if Arsenal do shell out the money for him. Maybe have to sack a few other of their staff to get them funds or something. I don't know. But, they have got that opportunity. And I think, would he rather play Europa League for Leicester, where he's been, loved by the fans and the staff and the team, or would he go to Arsenal, where he'd take on obviously a bigger challenge, but it would be without European football, which, I mean, is something that everyone aspires to, I think. Suraj, would you agree with Arian's top six, or would you change a few things there?
I think exactly like last season, I have the teams that Arian has in the top six exactly the same, but just a couple of tweaks here and there. Winners pains me to say, but again, it's going to be Man City because I think we can all agree that Man City are the most annoying team in the league, and not just me. I think every non-Man City fan will say that because the way I look at it, if they sign Grealish and they sign Kane, and Grealish and Kane have poor seasons where they score just say 10 goals or less than 10 goals, they're still favorites to win the league. That's how strong they are at the moment. And that's how well Pep knows the league. And if you recall, last October we were all calling him Fraudiola because he was losing games and then he just went on this unreal winning streak and won everything. So I think first spot's pretty much done. Uh, Second is where I disagree with Arion, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. I think it's going to be Chelsea. But this is under the assumption that they sign Lukaku. If they don't, then I wouldn't have them second because Lukaku's unreal striker. He's going to get them tons of goals. And I think now they have two types of strikers, Werner and Lukaku. For all of Werner's faults and his flops last season, his off the ball movement I thought was still really, really good. And I think all his misses were just, that patch that a striker has that he just need to get over. And if he finds the scoring boots early, uh, I think they can be a really, really good strike force. And then you have Havertz, and they just don't have uh, they have tons of talent in their side. So uh, part of me tells me that their whole Champions League run was just a honeymoon period. But I think Tuchel's too good a manager to, you know, just slack off. I think he would have been studying the Premier League all summer and he looked to make changes. And I think they can contend for the league easily, but winning it will be difficult because uh, okay, I'll get to that in a bit. Third, obviously, I have United. Like exactly like Arion said, I was happy with Sancho and Varane so far, but it's just that Grealish here we go just completely sunk me. I thought that's done. But that's pretty much decided the league. If we do get a proper defensive midfielder, even then I think it's going to be difficult because look at Liverpool. They did everything right that season. Was it the 18-19 season, but they lost by I think 1 or 2 points, and they took the race to the 99th point, and that's where they lost. So that's the issue with the Premier League at the moment. Even if you do everything right, there's a chance you'll lose. And I think that's what United need to do. We just need to do our part right and hope City slip up somewhere. And when you get the opportunity, don't bottle it. Like last season, we lost to Sheffield and we drew to Everton. Those two games just derailed our title challenge. So we need to prevent those this season. We have the tools to do it, but I think we still need to strengthen if we have to go toe to toe with City. Fourth, I've gone for Liverpool. Uh, I think Konate was a great signing to go alongside Van Dijk because it was always the is it going to be Matip, is it going to be Gomez, but now it's Konate. And but again, here's the issue with Liverpool. Like again, like Arian said, they're prone to injuries, and they're the kind of side where one injury can completely derail their season, like it did last season. Last season it was Van Dijk. I hope. I mean, God forbid, but what if it's Salah this season who's out for a season? And as terrible as Mane was, it'll be. I think Liverpool fans will dread the possibility of of Salah, of Mane leading their line without Salah because Mane was atrocious last season. Same thing with Jota. When he's playing, he's unplayable. But last season, out of nowhere, he got injured. He got injured in a dead rubber game, and that they didn't need that injury because Mane was really bad. And for me, I don't know, it's better than the previous season. But I don't know what his position is. Is he a defender? Is he a striker? easier midfielders almost. Uh, so yeah, I would have them top four, but I would have them more comfortably top four than it was last season. Last season they were in a proper top four battle, but I think this season they'll comfortably get it. Fifth, I have Leicester, and mostly because, and also this is under the assumption that they keep Madison and don't let him go to uh, Arsenal. Uh, I think Madison, the Fofana miss is going to be a really, really big one. I don't even know who they're going to play in place of him. So having one of your key centre back out is always going to be difficult in the Premier League. And I think they're going to mess up the early few games, and plus they've had a tendency to bottle their top four bid. We've seen in the past. Actually, both the seasons before this, they've completely messed up their top four race. And sixth, I have Spurs. And before that, shout out to uh, Aston Villa, who I think will come very close but miss out. And Arsenal, actually. I have an unpopular I have an unpopular opinion that Ben White's actually a very good signing for them. I know the price tags it definitely draws comparisons with Varane, but I think he's a good signing. He's not the leader they need, but he's a good long-term option. And next, I think that the guy that signed, Albert Sambilokonga, he is young, so they can really mold him into a very special player. And I'm not going to pretend like I watched a lot of him last season, but from whatever I've seen, I think if Arteta plays his cards right, or the coaching staff plays the cards right, they have a really special midfield player there. And I've spoken to countless Arsenal fans, and I've told them this that they need what we did. They need a Bruno Fernandes who can just just flip their mentality 180 degrees. Because if you look at us, we were really, really poor before Bruno, and they just need that signing. Anyway, we're talking about top six contenders. So Spurs is going to be sixth. Uh, the reason I put them sixth is even if they manage to sell Kane now, they'll even if they do everything right, they'll be able to get his replacement, which I think is next to impossible to find, within the next 1 week if they want that player to be ready for the start of the season. So their new signings and their Kane reinforcements has completely missed the preseason training, which I think is going to be huge. And you just, I don't know, it's like that Moneyball scene. You can't replace Kane. There's no player in the world that you can. Maybe Lewandowski, but he's not coming to Spurs. And plus, there's a lot of chaos going on. They have a new manager, and he has to deal with their best player not showing up to training. It's got to have a negative impact on this side. And but they are strengthening their defense, and that's a good thing. And so I think that part is good. But they were they did very well in attack last season, but I think that's going to suffer next season. But they'll do better in defense. That's why I still have them in the top six.
Yeah, thank you. And before we carry on, we have got a question based on Liverpool. Just show it. Here we go. That Liverpool attack does look predictable. All of a sudden, you would have thought a striker was their main target after a centre back. It's an interesting point. I think the fact is their attack didn't get a lot of break, and I think they broke it down on Monday Night Football or something that Salah and Mane and Firmino basically played every game last season, mostly because Jota was injured and Minamino was inexplicably loaned out to Southampton. Shaqiri didn't really feature that much either, and they don't really have that many options. It does seem like maybe not a striker perhaps, but maybe any kind of wide forward that can play any of the front three. I mean, they were linked with Ismail Assar and thought that would be a good one, or maybe I think his name is Pedro Gonçalves, plays for Sporting, is a very versatile player and would suit them. But obviously, it's something they haven't looked at. Obviously, a centre back does make sense, and like you said, Aaron, Kabak's not coming back to Liverpool. He's going to stay at Schalke or move off to somewhere else because I think Schalke are in a bit of turmoil as well. But yeah, I mean, do you see Jason asked you, do you see Liverpool signing any forwards at all, or do you think that that's going to be them really just Kanate and that's it?
I mean, I'm not as up on Liverpool's business as I am on Man United's, but I do think that you hit on a very good point, and I think it's a theme that everyone's hitting on with regards to our title charge. It's just the idea of having to play the same squad day in and day out to get results, and I think that Liverpool could definitely stand to add a striker or a forward because, like you said, their attack through Mane and through Salah looked at times just exhausted last year. Like they were just playing, and we saw it even with our squad, especially with our squad, where we were relying so heavily on Bruno, and every game it was basically, well, United didn't get the result. Bruno didn't have a great game. Like that was like literally the whole key. So it's the same kind of thing with Liverpool. Like if Salah and Mane aren't scoring, they weren't winning. So yeah, I mean, depth is the name of the game in this Premier League. When I always talk about this, when Sir Alex had it going here, we had 2 11s that were capable of being top 4 squads. Like literally, we could have split the squads and challenged for top 4. I don't. It's not as easy to do now with the wages being what they are, but that's got to be the goal for every top side. I mean, City's done it. City has probably where they can split their squad into 2 and probably challenge for top 6. But you mentioned it with all those teams. Siraj mentioned it, and Aryan mentioned it. The other teams besides City who are challenging for that top 6 or the league title are all an injury away from disaster. I mean, if we found out, knock on wood, whatever, Bruno was down for an extended period of time, there goes our title hopes. Done. Yeah, I'm with you, Arian. But you know what I mean? But City can stand to lose some players and still run out a very strong squad. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if they'll do it, Liverpool, but I think they could stand to add someone if they have the money to do it.
I mean, there was a point where their depth in midfield was, I mean, amazing. They had Fabinho's playing fantastically. They had Henderson and Wijnaldum who are playing really well. Milner was still, able to do a job and look 24 and in his prime and do whatever. And they also had Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain who offered a lot of energy. I mean, I think Oxlade-Chamberlain's still a decent player for them. I think Keita's probably going to get moved on. Just injuries have really hampered him, and that's always a shame. But it's just not worked for him. I could see him going sort of back to the Germany, and I think they want to get him off the wage bill as well because I think they've got a lot of midfielders now with Thiago as well, and Curtis Jones coming through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Liverpool. I think you're right, Suraj. I think they won't get any further than 4th, maybe 3rd if Chelsea have a bad run. It's going to be interesting to see. I think the top 4 will be those 4 teams: United, City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. I don't know. I'm not quite sure of the order, but I'll give my prediction in a bit. But it's going to be more interesting to see who makes it best of the rest because there's quite a few teams that are going to kind of fit through. And I think you're right, Tottenham. I think if they could, I could see them going for Raul Jimenez actually. If they get the money from Kane, because I think 40-50 million pounds might do it for Wolves because he'll probably want to join Nuno at Spurs, and I think him and Son could have a similar relationship to the one that he and Jota had and the one that Son and Kane had. I think they're quite similar in that sense, and he's already got Premier League experience too, so that'd be interesting. What I do think is maybe Leicester drop off a little bit more because I still think their squad depth isn't great, and if they're going to be playing Europa League football regularly, that could be a big concern for them. Especially with, it might just be Kaglar, Soyuncu, and I'm not sure if there are other centre-backs. Because I think Wes Morgan retired. So they've got Fofana injured, they've got Evans injured, and what is it, Justin as well?
They have a Marty.
Oh, Daniel Amati, yeah, forgot about Amati. Yeah, they do have Amati, so they have got those options, I guess, but it's going to be tough for them, I think. But we'll move on. Jason, I mean, who are your top 6 options?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be somewhat anticlimactic after everyone's predictions because I'm going to be roughly in the same mold. And I found myself nodding a lot when Siraj was talking and Arian was talking because I just agree with a lot of what they're saying. as much as I want to be the rah-rah homer guy and say we're going to do it, I think there's just too many, like Arian was saying, we need a perfect season for us to win the title. We need no injuries. We need to not drop points on, I mean, I've said this a million times. You can't win the title in August, but you can lose the title in August. If you drop points, I mean, we've seen it several times where we've gotten off to those slow starts and you're chasing the whole time, and it's impossible with a squad as strong as City that's capable of going, 10 matches unbeaten, 12, 15. I mean, they're capable of doing that. Road, home, doesn't matter. So I think City will win the league. I do think we will battle with Chelsea for second. I think we'll get second. I think Chelsea will be third. Liverpool is still just strong enough to be fourth. And 5 and 6, I was trying to find a sneaky squad to put in there. I was going to try to make a case for Everton, but I just don't think I can. They just look too thin to me. Aston Villa is a squad that could make a charge. I looked at Leeds. They just seem to grind result. But I think in the end, it's going to be Leicester just always seems to find a way to get into Europe. So I think they'll finish fifth. And as for sixth, I think this is the year where Arsenal finally puts it together. I know Aaron disagrees, but I think they just have enough talent, enough firepower that at some point they have to click enough to at least get sixth. So I'm gonna put them sixth.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think Arsenal could do it with no European football. Obviously,
that's the other piece of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an all-time low for them really at this point. That they went trophyless last season. They finished eighth after making a big signing in Thomas Partey, and they've got a big signing now, Ben White, and I think he's going to help them stabilize sort of the what was a horrific back four at points. I think the fact is that if they keep Tierney fit, he'll be fantastic for them. I think. I'm not sure of who's going to start the season. Is it Rob Holding? I don't think he's always that consistent. Is it going to be Mari? I haven't seen enough of him because he's obviously had a couple of long-term injuries. Gabriel looks clumsy at points, but whether that's just because the back four's been unsettled is another story. So it will be interesting to see what happened with Arsenal. I wouldn't sort of go on. I'm not sure if they're going to get close to top four at all at any point. But I think top six could work for them. I think it would be a sign that things are looking much better than what was a bleak situation. If they do manage to get a trophy in the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, they'd probably take that at this stage because their rebuild is taking longer because they clearly don't have or aren't being given a lot of funds to make things happen. But we'll talk about Arsenal in a bit if we've got a bit of time, maybe in a context of Mikel Arteta. But we'll go on to I'll sort of whip through my top six as well. I think as painful, again, saying the same things, Manchester City probably will win the title. I could see them slipping up. We saw them slip up against Leeds and Brighton in the sort of latter stages of the season last season, and certainly they showed that on a big occasion in the Champions League final they did choke, and even against Newcastle they were, defensively woeful. And I think Diaz has had a really bad summer. He's had a really bad summer, and Laporte's been good but wants to leave. Stones has had a very good summer, but again he has had injuries. He has been nervy at points, and if it's just him, Ake, and Diaz, that's not a lot to back up on. So things could turn in someone else's favour, and I think second will be United, and I think it will be closer than 12 points. I think it will be about 5-6, because I think City won't run away with it. They'll win it, but they won't run away with it as much as they did the last 3 times they've won the league. So I think they could do something, because I think that, again, they might also try and push for Champions League, because I think if Pep can't deliver a Champions League for Manchester City after spending, was it $1 billion I think he spent since he's been here? And that might be an over-exaggeration. It might be true. I can't remember, but it's been a lot.
Their second choice backline costs as much as their first choice backline.
Yeah, that's shocking. That's shocking. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of their things. He spent so much money that if they don't win the Champions League, I think he would deem that as a failure, because I mean they won leagues before he was there. They won the FA Cup and the community, the Capital One. It was called Capital One then. So I think the fact is he would be deemed a failure if he didn't produce them a European trophy at the end of this season, because it's been 5 years.
Yeah, and it's been like 80 years since they've won anything in Europe. And it's literally the one thing as United fans that we still have over them. Well, that and the 20 titles, but like we still can say, I've had many an argument with City fans when they want to give us crap for our Europa Cup. I say, hey, our Europa League title. I say, hey, you'd kill for your Europa League title. It would be the biggest title you've ever won in Europe. So, yeah, I mean, so that I was thinking about that as we all were predicting City to win the league. That is the one little caveat we can hang our hat on, where maybe they're just not that motivated to win the league. We've seen that before with City, where they should be mounting a title charge, but just aren't because they're focused on other things or they're just not motivated. So that's what we could hope for. But I think if they're properly motivated, it's their title to lose.
Yeah, and I think they'll try and make sure that United don't win the title. I think because they'll obviously not want to concede it to the rivals, just as much as we don't want to concede sort of any title to them at all. But they'll want that sort of motivation that they won't want it to be United. So they'll still. And of course they've got enough depth to compete on both fronts, but it's just whether they will or not, and that depends on a bit of luck really at this stage. We have had another question before I continue. Or rather a statement. Have to agree with Arian. Arsenal won't finish top 6. I have them 8th or worse unless they make quality late signings. It's the same team as last year with one main team signing, and Ben White is not Premier League proven. It's interesting. I think Ben White is a good centre-back, but obviously he plays in a back 5 for Brighton, which is something that Arteta used a lot, especially when playing against, I want to say the big teams, but basically the current top 6. He used a back 5 and it still didn't work. I think White will add some decent quality. It's just whether they get a more complete side. And I think, like you said, I think they need a number 10 because they haven't got one. They probably need another midfielder. And I can't see why they not allow Xhaka to move on if they can find a better replacement, because, I mean, he's had all the controversies that known to Premier League footballer pretty much. And, he's been stripped of the captaincy, he's been booed off, he's got red cards for stupid decisions, he's been, pretty error-prone as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, but I do agree. I think Arsenal won't make top 6 unless they sort of get themselves sorted, but it's just whether they can. But, I will probably say they wouldn't. But, I mean, would you make that point that Ben White's not Premier League proven, Aaron?
I mean, the way I look at it is like for 50 million plus, you're looking at a signing that is going to have a significant impact. And I just don't think that right now, coming in off the bat, he is somebody that gives you the kind of Van Dijk effect on your back 4. And they also have some other underlying issues. Well, now they have some depth issues, I think, at centre back in the first place, because past White and Gabriel, there's Holding. And that's really it. Without, because did Louis stay or did he go?
Amari, he's been signed permanently.
Okay, so it's still past 2 on the surface. It's not great, and I think that's where their issues lie. It's still defensively more than attacking. At right back, by consensus, their whole fan base hates Bellerin, and he has proven to be a little bit of a liability for them. And Maitland-Niles is not a right back, and he showed that on his loan spell at West Brom that he is not. He can fill in there, but he's not a right back. So, are they going to sign a new right back, or are they going to ride it out with Bellerin, who can cost them points? On the left-hand side, they have Tierney, who of course is very good, but past him, they just signed a new guy from Benfica as backup, who is a big unknown going into the season. And Leno is, I think they thought he was going to be their answer for years, but it's looking like maybe he's not actually the answer, because I do think that he has an error in him, and they've been linked to Ramsdale for some inexplicable money for the past few months, which is very, very on brand for Arsenal, I must say. So it's like, I think for them to finish top 6 would have to be as perfect of a season for them as it would have to be for United to win the league. And I think if anyone is more capable of having a very a near flawless season, it would be United's squad than it would be theirs, because I do think that they are missing quite a few pieces still. And another issue that I could go on about is that they don't really score that many goals. So you're going into a season with a lot of expectations on Pepe. You'd hope that Lacazette figures out where the goal is again. You need Aubameyang to keep it up, even though he's dropped off a lot last season, and you'd want him to carry the load once again. And you have a bunch of young guys like Nketiah and Balogun that they committed to a long-term contract, and Emil Smith-Rowe with the number 10 on his back, which, make no mistake, is going to be a very, very heavy shirt to carry, especially early doors, after what some previous number 10s have done for them. So it's going to be a testing season, and then you're assuming that Arteta is going to get everything spot on too, which he has shown that he can, but more often than not, he's also shown that he's capable of messing things up tactically. So I think Arsenal are maybe turning into a little bit of a mid-table side.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that it comes to that point that Arsenal sort of decline that much, and we saw it with. I mean, we've seen it with big clubs where it's happened. I mean, think about Villa when they were a fantastic, massive club and they got relegated and they came back from it, but they have that sort of thing, and it does happen, and especially with Newcastle as well. I mean, the fact is that they have bad owners, and that's something that we can all sort of feel for. But it's something that is a problem, and it is something that either will be solved if they sell the club, or if the club goes into so much turmoil they think it's not worth it, and it could get ugly for Arsenal. But we'll have to see really what happens. But yeah, they're an interesting one for this season.
I mean, just a direct comparison to what you just said, I think Villa have made better signings on paper than Arsenal.
Yeah, and they tried to sign the ones that Arsenal wanted as well.
Yeah, they tried to sign Arsenal number 10.
Yeah, and they'll probably still go for it if they get the money from Grealish. Well, they'll get the money from Grealish, so but they'll try and sign him even if they want to. I think there's also Ward-Prowse they're looking into. I mean, they've also going to try and I think it looks like it's set. Tuanzebe's going to go on loan back to Aston Villa. I think after signing an extension for his contract for till 2023, I think he's got an option for. So I think that's what they're going to try and do, and it would be great to get him some experience playing regularly for a Premier League side. And I think he'd walk into their team really. I think him and Mings would be a decent partnership, or in back five with Konsa as well, who's a good centre back. It could be a good back four for them, or back five. But yeah, I'll carry on with I'll just quickly whip through my top six. It's basically the same things everyone else has said. I think United will finish second, pretty close to City. I don't think it'll be too far. I still think Chelsea have an issue. I don't know if they'll sign Lukaku and Koundé in the same window, but if they are sacrificing Koundé for Lukaku, they still have an issue at centre-back, because I still think Christensen's a bit wonky. I think Thiago Silva, if he gets injured, they lose a massive leader in there. And Rudiger, again, has an error in him, but has played really well under Tuchel so far. But as we've seen with Tuchel, things can really go wrong when things go wrong. I mean, we saw it at PSG, we saw it at Dortmund, where he got sacked for both, really. And it didn't end well. And the team looked sort of a little bit fragile when things ended. So there is an option there. Liverpool, I still think, will be fourth because, like all the reasons you said before, they haven't got enough depth in attack. They're one injury away from having a huge problem in defence. Still think if Robertson or Trent gets injured, they have a really big issue because they've got no real depth behind them. And I think even if Van Dijk gets injured, they'll still have an issue with a leader in that back four, much like we did with Maguire. And he might not be the same person that he was before the injury as well, which is another big concern for Liverpool. And then fifth and sixth was tricky for me, but I think I'm going to go for Tottenham in fifth, and I might pick Villa in sixth just because the way they're going, and if they invest that 100 million well, which I expect them to, or maybe the reason why they could spend big money is because they knew that money was coming from City. One of the two, I think they'll do really well, actually, and I think they could push Leeds are interesting team, but again, they haven't really made that many investments, and I still think they've got a bit of a fragility against the middle teams. Everton, I don't see competing. I see being an annoying team, but I don't see them like being anywhere near top 6. And I think the fact that Villa don't have European football will help them as well. So that'll be my top 6. We'll move quickly on because we've not got a lot of time, but relegation candidates. So we'll start again. Jason, would you like to go for your 3 relegation candidates this season?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I was just kind of going through it the last little while, trying to figure out about the relegations here, and I want to kind of go away from the typical prediction. Oh, the 3 new clubs will just get relegated, right? That's always like the easy picks, right? But I've been looking at the odds checker. It looks like Norwich is the most likely to go down, and possibly Watford. People think is going to go down. Crystal Palace is up there. I think I'm going to go for a crazy one because I think they've been teetering on the edge, and I think they started. No, I can't pick them in my top 6 and relegation. That'd be a pretty good way to hedge my bet. Do we think there's a chance? Is this the year that finally Newcastle? Because they've seemed to be the cat with 9 lives. They're always in that battle zone, and they always get a couple results that go their way and get out of it. So I think I'll go with Norwich on a 1 and done, and I'll go with Watford, and I think Newcastle. I'm gonna go with them. I'll probably be proven way wrong. They'll probably finish 6th, but I'm going for them.
That's an interesting one, actually. That's interesting. I think Newcastle have a lot of problems. They obviously haven't invested, but they've got players that can turn up for them. I mean, obviously, St. Maximan's a wonderful player.
Great player, yes.
Yeah. I mean, Callum Wilson can bag goals if he stays fit, but it's a big if. They've got Fraser as well, who can turn up. He had a fantastic season. I think 2018-19 for Bournemouth was a really good one for him. And their centre-backs, the defence isn't terrible. If they get Willokin, that would be really good for them, because I think he came in with some really, really helpful goals for them. I think certainly against Liverpool in that fantastic draw that everyone was happy about. I mean, it was a fantastic result for fantastic if they can get him. But again, yeah, they have problems with their owners as well. I mean, their owner, in fact, he's really quite detrimental to any success they will try and get. But it's an interesting take, actually. And Norwich and Watford as well.
Yeah, I just don't see. I don't see where they have enough to stay up. But I mean, Newcastle. I mean, in the end, they'll probably like grind enough results to get out of it. But they always seem to be in that where it's after Christmas, and they're in that conversation every year. And they still think they're a massive club, but they're a bit like Arsenal in that way, where they still think they're a massive club, but they're just not anymore. But yeah, I don't know. I think that, I mean, it'd be a good bet to make because the odds you'll get a good payout on that one. But if they go down, but I mean, I'll stick with it as a pick, but I doubt it actually happens.
It's an interesting one, actually. We'll see how they turn out, because they could make some signings. There's still plenty of time for them, but we'll see how that goes. So I'll ask you next now. Last year, and I think actually the year before, you predicted Brighton to go down both times. Are you gonna stick with that this year, or do you see it being a different group?
I was hoping you wouldn't remember, but yeah, I've dropped my Brighton agenda. They're a very good club. But I am bringing one agenda back. In the 2019-20 season, when Norwich came up, I told anyone who could listen that these guys are going to be the next Wolves. They're going to change the Premier League, and they just ditched me. So no mercy. They're last. They're going down. Uh, Also, more logically speaking, they went down with a front 3 of Cantwell, Pookie, and Buendia. And now they sold Buendia, and they've replaced it with Rasika, but uh, I think Buendia is too special a player to lose. And they just, I was just going through a squad, and I was just like, there's no one in midfield, there's no one defense, at least worthy enough to compete in the Premier League. They're definitely going down for me last. And 19th place, I agree with um, Jason. Newcastle are going down. They towards the end of last season, they couldn't buy a win to save their life. They were really bad. They just kept losing, and then, like Jason said, they got a couple of results in the end that just switched the dial in their favor when the chips were up or down. Uh, and they haven't made any signings either. And the only defender they linked to is Phil Jones. What are they doing? I have no idea. So I think this is the season they finally go down. But if by any chance there are some Newcastle fans watching, the silver lining is that maybe Mike actually finally gives up and sells the club. And the 18th place team, and this is the real kicker I have here, is Southampton to finally go down. Not finally go down, but last season, I think their impressive run in the beginning was kind of a false image because you saw how quickly they went back to their level, which is mid-table, and now they've sold the only reason why they were mid-table, that is Ings. And where did the deal come from? I don't even see them being linked to any top striker who can replace those numbers even closely. And Shea Adams isn't ready. They have Theo Walcott on the wings. And if Ward-Prowse leaves for Villa, that's just game over for them. The defense isn't anything special, at least I don't think so. Bednarek and Vestergaard, not all that great. They have a few youngsters here and there who may or may not do the job, so it's very easy for them at the moment. And I think the main reason why I think they're going down is because all the usual suspects to be in a relegation scrap, West Ham aren't going to be in the relegation scrap. Palace have done really well in this window, so they're not going to be anywhere nearby. And I think Brentford, I think they are going to impress us. Maybe not a top half finish, but definitely closer to the top. And the last one is Watford. And the only reason I think Watford are going to be safe is because they have some really good Premier League proven players who know the league, Gray and Deeney and um, Cleverly. Anyway, so I think Watford are staying up as well. So that's my three: Norwich, Newcastle, Southampton.
That's a very interesting take. Southampton, I didn't even think of at all until you just said it now. But I mean, it's a very interesting point, especially if they lose Ward-Prowse as well, which is what it looks like it's going to happen with the Grealish money that Villa will get. I think if they have a bad injury spell like they had last season, when we got sent them for 9, they had no centre backs really. They had no defenders at all. It'll be interesting actually because they could have a big problem. I think Norwich will probably be down. I mean, I don't see them doing as well. I don't even see them doing as well as they did in the 1920, where they had some fantastic wins against, I think, Arsenal and City. I just don't even see them doing that. I just think they're going to get really badly punished for the same mistakes. Really, I don't know if they'll change with an extra. I think so. Yes, yeah, I think so. I think it was it Norwich? Who would it have been? Can't even think of who else it was, but it was it wasn't pretty for them. But it might have been Watford as well. Actually, I think Watford might have finished bottom. I'm not sure because I remember they had a shout of getting promoted, of staying up. Then they sacked the manager with 3 games to go, and then got relegated immediately. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be a strange one for them actually, but I can see them being bottom. For me, at 19th, I'm probably going to go for Newcastle as well. Actually, if they don't get any signings in, and if midway through the season, Sir Maximan decides I don't really feel up for a relegation battle, and someone could take him, I could see him going to back to France,
Arsenal.
or I mean, Arsenal, yeah, or I mean, I could even see Tottenham taking him because I think he's a flair player that they really do need a little bit of a spark in. So that could work for them. And I will pick Watford, but I think it will be close between them and Palace because even though they've signed Joachim Anderson even, he's still got relegated with Fulham, and I think Palace still have a lot of problems. And if Zaha wants to leave, I think he will, and I think he's still not quite happy that he's not been allowed to leave or he's not been.
I think you found like that. Palace was the other squad I was considering, and the thing about Palace is I keep thinking Zaha should be enough to keep them up, but that, like, you hit on it. You found the path to their relegation. If Zaha isn't motivated and wants out and makes it stink, I don't see where they score goals. I just don't see it.
And Townsend's left.
I mean, I like Mateta and Eze should be he'll have a really great season as well. I think, but it's just if you can get the goals from Zaha, who's a fantastic player. I don't know what will happen, but I can see him moving on. It'll be interesting. Suraj, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Oh no, I said Townsend's left as well, so I forgot to consider that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that'll be the close. I think Brentford, the one we haven't actually talked about. I think they do. I think maybe we're looking at through how well they played against United. I mean, with an almost full strength side, they played really well, and they played some good football. Sorry,
I'll talk about them. Don't worry.
All right, no worries. You know what? That's a great tangent. Off you go.
So first of all, I just wanted to say, just so it doesn't look like I'm copying, because I thought my Southampton pick was going to be really out of left field, but I've put them in mind when I wrote it before we started. So I think I'm going to start. I think Norwich. I totally agree with what everybody said. I think they want to play football that is suited to the Premier League, but they just do not have the personnel to do it in the Premier League, and it just showed when they were in the league a couple of seasons ago. They played some really good football at times, but when they tried to go head-to-head with the bigger teams or even the mid-table teams that are just established in the Premier League, they just got eat up alive. And I think if they try to do it again, it's just not going to work. And that was my thinking with Brentford too, because from what I've seen of them in the Championship, and especially in their Watkins and Benrahma days, they do try to play some really good football. And I just don't think that they've signed a couple of players, but they are just not Premier League. The squad is just not Premier League standard. And I do agree with what Arjun said, that they did look decent against United, but it was a United like third string team. It wasn't a United full strength Premier League side. It was a team full of either young players or outcasts. So it's like I'm not sure about them, and I wasn't very convinced by Tony either up against Mengi and Axel Tuanzebe, which was kind of concerning to me from a Brentford perspective, because I think they're really banking on him to have like a Callum Wilson-esque season to even give them a chance. So if he doesn't score in between 10 to 15 goals, it might look a little bleak for them. But I do think they're set up pretty well. But my thinking is that the teams that get promoted from the Championship that have some chance of making some noise have to be Sheffield United-esque more than Norwich or Brentford-esque, because it's just, if you try to come to the Premier League and play football, like even Leeds had it good that they were able to dominate some of those teams from the lower half, because when they tried to go head-to-head with the bigger teams, they got careless and they got tore up, and it made them switch their tactics completely for their replay game against United at Elland Road, because they didn't want to do it all over again. So I do expect Leeds to kind of adjust that, but that's a different conversation. So I have Brentford and Norwich, just I think purely based on strength of their squad is just not there for the football that they want to play. And then when I was listening to your guys' suggestions, I was like, well, there's actually a few more teams that I thought initially on looking at the table that could be in a relegation scrap, so it could be an interesting one. My initial take was that it's just going to be the three promoted teams to go straight back down, but I do kind of like what Watford have going on, and they do have a few Premier League proven players, and I do like what their manager is doing. So if they actually give him time, I think maybe they could stay up. So I went for Southampton just for the reason that Ings has left, like you guys said. take away his goals, and even if you replace them with 5 to 10, that's still not a lot. Like you really, they really, if they do reinvest whatever money they got, which they're kind of running late, they're definitely not going to have it before the season starts. You're really going to have to hit the nail on the head to bring in a replacement that's going to give you what Danny Ings gave them. And if James Ward-Prowse leaves, God forbid for them, I think they're going to be in a really tough spot, because I think it kind of showed at spells last season that Hasenhüttl has a way of playing football, but Southampton just don't kind of have the right tools there. And I do kind of see it just self-combusting if they don't bring in the right personnel. And if they lost James Ward-Prowse along with Ings, even if they reinvest that money and replace them, it's like, they're probably not going to replace them from within the Premier League, because that's just not what Southampton do in terms of bringing signings in, other than the Ings thing, which I believe he was a free agent. So I do think they've been really hurt by losing that, and everybody knows of their defensive worries here and there. All they did was sign a backup right back from Chelsea. So it could be one of those seasons where one of those left field suggestions gets relegated. And I think about the Brighton really do need a striker. Newcastle, well, they're just the same old team, and they have Steve Bruce, who obviously has his managerial limitations. But I do think that it might be a very interesting relegation scrap, and I'm going to stick with my Southampton pick, because, like I said, I just think they just got too much firepower taken away from them, and Che Adams is just, he's good, he has potential, but he can't score goals yet, and that's going to hurt them.
I do think along lines of what you're saying, Arian, and where I listen to everybody talk, I think that the relegation battle is going to be much more interesting than the top four battle this year.
If they can get Callum Wilson from Newcastle, say, hey, they're going to be in a relegation fight, definitely next season, maybe you could help us stay up. And if Shea Adam, pitches into that, I don't think Callum Wilson can completely replace Ings. I think that's the only possibility, because the only player in terms of caliber is Ollie Watkins, and he's not leaving Aston Villa. So they could try for Callum Wilson. I think that's a decent opportunity.
Yeah, I think if I could just add really quick to what Jason said, I think the signings that the top four are making, minus Liverpool so far, they've only made one. But if Chelsea get Lukaku and Koundé, United with Varane and Sancho, and then what City are doing, it kind of looks like, and I read a tweet about it yesterday, somebody said it, the top four have kind of separated themselves from the rest of the pack in a way with the amount of moves that they made. So it might go into a traditional just top four being so far and away from fifth, sixth, and below. So it might be more of a fight for just those other European spots. But I do feel like on paper, as of right now, that top four seems like a very obvious pick. It's just nobody knows in what order.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the fact is that everyone was surprised when Liverpool dipped so badly, but they still managed to come away with it. With, I think they had like 5 or 6 wins in a row at the end of the season, which sort of got them to third. Actually, they could have, even for all that drama from December till I think about February, maybe early March, they still managed to pull away with a third place finish. So they have still got a lot of quality, and I think that's right. I think it might be a really competitive, maybe in the top four, it'll be competitive between the four of them. If something happens to City and they maybe drop a couple points here and there, then it will be a bit more competitive. I certainly see 5th and 6th, 7th being competitive as well. And relegation could be very interesting too, because it could just be the fact that the teams don't get any points, or that they all get quite a few points and it's actually quite higher up. So maybe that you have to be safe. Maybe you have to get 45 points, maybe 50 points in order to stay safe from relegation, and not just the standard 40. But we'll see what happens. And we unfortunately haven't got a lot more time, but we'll try and just whip through quickly. Jason, if you want to just give your predictions for the Golden Boot for the Premier League.
I think I'm going to stick with Sal. I think I'm going to go with Salah. I think he's going to score the most goals. For the Golden Glove, though, I don't think I've got a pick. I just it's so many factors with the Golden Glove. Like I could see, a keeper winning it who's not that great, but just on a great squad. Like in the situation with City, unless they start rotating people. I don't know. I'm gonna go off of other people's picks and see if I for the Golden Glove. But Golden Boot, I think I'll go with Salah. What do you guys think?
Sarah, do you want to give yours?
Well, I don't have one. I'm just thinking. I'll go for Kane as per. Even if he's going to be at Spurs, he's not going to stop scoring. And if he goes to City, he's going to score even more. So I think that's the safest pick I can take. I was thinking of Watkins or maybe a surprise Lukaku pick, but I'm going to dial it down this time. Go for the safe bet, Kane.
Safe. Oh, sorry. I think it's a safe
Oh,
bet. I just don't know for who.
Do I give my Golden Glove pick too, or?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. This one's a kicker. Emiliano Martinez. Yeah.
Solid bet. He's done very well for them. It's just whether they can kick on from
I was
next
if
last.
my team had sold Emiliano Martinez and then looked at signing Ramsdale in the next season, I'd be crying grown man tears like right now. It's just a very sad situation to be in.
It is. It's sort of they've made some really bad decisions on who to get rid of and who to keep. Like even with Sanchez and Özil, like those few. I mean, they should have kept Sanchez and should have binned off Özil, and even then that would have probably helped United as well. Because I think getting Sanchez a left winger when we have two great left wingers that were in good form really, and then to just put another one in just didn't quite make sense. And I think Özil probably could have helped. You never know. Even with astronomical wages. But hindsight is really not very helpful at this point with Sanchez. But yeah, I think that's the point. If they make really bad decisions at board level, I don't think that was anything to do with Arteta or Wenger, really. I think that was more to do with the board saying, well, if he wants to go, he can go, and we've got Leno kind of thing, which was a horrible decision. But yeah, I could definitely see him getting the Golden Glove. Aaron, sorry, any pick for you?
So over the last 2 to 3 minutes, I have rechanneled my optimism from last week's podcast, and I think that Cavani is going to win the Golden Boot in the Premier League because United are going to use him as a league striker, and they're going to rotate in the cups, so he's going to be healthy every week, and he's going to put them away with Sancho and Bruno feeding him. And I think Varane is going to have a Van Dijk-esque impact on United's back four, meaning Dean Henderson or David De Gea will win the Golden Glove, and 21 is coming.
Well, yeah, that's the big question: is who's going to be in goal? If it's going to be David De Gea or Dean Henderson, it looks like it's going to be David De Gea to start against Leeds. Just quickly, Jason's got to leave, so just quickly give your Golden Glove, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, I agree with everybody's what they're saying, and I think it's going to end up being Ederson, though. The more I think about it, just because it's just to me, he's got the least to do. So he gets all those clean sheets because they always have the ball. City.
Yeah, it's very true. And if they can keep up, then yeah, it's a good selection. But if you've got to go now, thanks for joining us, Jason, and see you soon.
All right, take it easy, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Okay, so we'll just carry on, I guess. Yeah, I think the fact is that it. Actually, I forgot what we were talking about. Aaron, you were doing your Golden Glove was Dean Henderson. Sorry, yes. So yeah, apologies. Yeah, I think the fact is that it depends. It could be David De Gea starting, and if Dean Henderson comes back and plays really well in, I can only assume what will be the cup games or maybe after the first international break, then we'll have Ollie was going to have a big decision to make. But I think if David De Gea can sort himself out, he's obviously a fantastic goalkeeper that served the club fantastically. However, if he has the same form that he did for brief stages last season, but certainly the 2 seasons before, then I think he might be reduced to a second choice role, maybe just playing in the cups, maybe just playing as the European goalkeeper. We'll have to see. But Cavani's a strong shout because obviously he's just come back from international duty and holiday. It's interesting to see if he'll start or if it'll be Martial on the first day as well. So that'll be another big call for Solskjaer. But yeah, I think my choice will probably be. It would be Bruno because I still think he'll get goals and he'll still score penalties and he'll still take penalties. So I think he'll have that, and I still think he'll make more runs into the box if Sancho's there to supply him. Oh, I think we all just refreshed for a second, but yeah, I think there's that, and then I think my Golden Glove will be Edouard Mendy, just because I think Tuchel will probably grind out those 1-0, 2-0 wins as much as possible. So that'll be my choices. We'll just say briefly because we have overran, but Champions League, and we'll skip the Europa League, but Champions League, who do you see as being the big favourite, Suraj?
Okay, that's a tough one, but I have to go for PSG. I do this every year, but I think it has to be PSG. If not, I think Barca have a shout. I know Koeman's not all that great, but you have Griezmann, Messi, Aguero, Memphis, and Frankie, Pedri, Workhorse, Busquets. I think they have a great team, but I think off late just that bottling mentality is somehow seeped into the team. But I think they have a good team to compete. They need to really strengthen the defense if they need to be taken seriously. But I think this is the first time where there isn't an out and out favorite to win the Champions League. Uh, so I think I'd have to go for PSG. They have to get it together this season.
Yeah, I think they've spent too much money on a fantastic team, and as long as Mbappe stays, because it looks like Real Madrid might try and make a late bid for him, I do think they'll be a big favourite. I wouldn't rule out Bayern Munich just because their team is fantastic, and I think they just had a couple of bad games just in the Champions League last season, which stopped them. I think they don't rule them out. They've got a fantastic squad. Even without Alaba, they've still got some great defenders. They've got a really good manager as well, who, you know, is one of the up and coming managers in world football at the moment. So he could turn it around. It could be, however, it could be a little bit of a horror show as well. I mean, their preseason has not been going so well, but obviously you can't make you can't sort of base a season on preseason, as we've also found. So it's going to be interesting. I think Bayern could be the big one. PSG obviously candidates. Don't rule United out. Based on last Champions League, had we actually not lost that stupid game to Başakşehir, the counter-attack that we could have put on would have been ridiculous. So I think we've still got a good shout just based on that. But got to get out the group first, and hopefully we won't have the group of death again. Honestly, I have a bad feeling we'll get Villarreal in the group stage. I don't know why. I just do. But there's
That's
no
kind of
penalty
a
shootouts.
double-edged sword. If we beat Villarreal in the group stages, I'll be like, why couldn't we beat them in the finals? And if we lose again, then and as I was speaking, Marca, I don't know how you pronounce it, the Spanish newspaper, they said that Messi has never been further from renewing his Barcelona contract.
Wow.
So he's still a free agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still technically a free agent. We should look into that.
Kane replacement.
The thing is
I wouldn't mind that.
Messi actually, you know what, City will probably just get him and just decide that Kane, they're just going to leave Kane and just be like, well, you can now just continue to not train with Tottenham and we'll just go and get Messi and play him up front. They'll still win the league and they'll probably win it better with Messi there as a false nine.
They'll get them both because FFP doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't. They won the case and then spent 50 million on Ruben Diaz.
Yeah. Oh dear. All right. Well, we'll finish up with your Champions League predictions, Arian. I mean, do you see anybody breaching PSG or Bayern or anyone else?
So when I've briefly just thought about it there now, I actually thought of Barca too. I thought that just purely based off their firepower, and it looks like Griezmann might stay too. So it's they're gonna have Dembele is still there, so they have quite a lot of rotational pieces. Very good midfield. Eric Garcia came into their back line to kind of strengthen things up a bit. So I do think that on paper they have potential. Obviously, Messi, I'm seeing so many conflicting reports, so who knows? I can't really imagine him leaving. So I'm assuming now if he stays, I think they're going to have a shout. I think Bayern still have that window of winning, I think, with their current squad that they have, and they've obviously replaced Alaba with Upamecano before Alaba even left. So I think I did think that if Lewandowski stayed healthy last season, they would have won it again. But I did think that was their downfall. Like their replacement was Choupo-Moting. Like with all due respect, it's just not even close. So that really did hurt them. So I think Bayern will be in the mix too, and PSG. I think this is their like last chance, and especially if Mbappe stays, because if they don't win it again after making again all the right signings, like they brought in a world-class keeper, they brought in like probably the most serial winner that there is in Sergio Ramos that was available on the market. So with the players that they have, and then Neymar aging, Di Maria getting older, it's like if they don't win it this season, and with Mbappe kind of flirting with a move away, they could have to blow it up next season and just try something different. So it's really getting close for them. So I think I would expect them to be favorites coming into it, just based off the signings that they've made. But I do like Barcelona as a kind of outside pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Sorry, after you.
Oh no, that I was just saying that if PSG get Pogba as well, then they have to win it. There's no question.
Yeah, no, that's undeniable. But again, I still think Pogba will stay at least this summer. I don't know about next summer, but I think he's going to stay the start of this season and then see how United are moving in just during the season. They might sign a small deal, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. You never know. But I think Barca, for me, is still their defence is still a massive issue. They've only got, I mean, Dest is a good young player, Garcia's a good young player, and Alba's a good attacking fullback, but defensively he's a problem. PK's not getting any younger. Longley is, I mean, he just gets floored every 5 minutes, even in La Liga, let alone in the Champions League. So, I mean, if they came up against Juventus, who will sit back, against an Allegri Juventus, who will sit back with their Chiellini, Bonucci, and whoever it is going to be else, sort of Delict at centre-back, I mean, I just don't see them getting enough goals to get past them. So that's the thing. Is again, we haven't even talked about Juventus, and they've got Allegri back, who, I mean, the fans love him. He knows the club inside out, and the reason why Ronaldo joined was mostly because of Allegri. So I think that'll be a big factor, and maybe even get Dybala firing on all cylinders as well would be a huge thing. And they've still got Chiesa, who's probably one of the best, most underrated world talents at the moment, based on that Euros as well. He was fantastic. So they have got a lot to think about. So I think they could be a dark horse, even though they're not even that much of a dark horse. But in comparison to PSG and Bayern and Barca and Real Madrid, they're a big contender. But I will ask one question, and it's not about the Manchester of Red, the Red of Manchester. It's the Blue of Manchester. Could they win it this year?
They could.
Aaron, sorry.
They could, but I don't think they will. I just don't think they will. I don't know. I just feel like they'll always have that something missing mentally. It just seems like guys, and I think that might be more so Pep than just the team itself. It feels to me like without Messi, Iniesta, and Xavi, he doesn't really know, or he maybe knows, but he just overthinks. Like there's the narrative that he's an overthinker in the biggest games. And I think it's true, because he goes in when he was at Barcelona and they beat United twice in those Champions League finals. You knew exactly how they're going to play, and he couldn't really play anything different because they were playing that flawlessly with the personnel that he had. He can't do that at City as much as he's trying to kind of mold that team to be similar to that Barcelona team. It's just never going to happen because there is no Messi, Xavi, or Iniesta. Like, you cannot duplicate that. And as good as his back line may be and as expensive they are, and even with Kane and Grealish, it's just he's going to have to play a different type of football, and he's going to have to adapt somehow in order to get over the line, because teams can defend against how he plays with City, and it was impossible to play against that Barcelona team. So I just think that when it comes down to it in those semifinals and final games, teams can set up, and he just gets in his head too much. As great of a manager as he is, he has proved over the last decade that he can't figure it out outside of Barcelona in Europe.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for him. I think the fact is that they've looked fantastic because they've never really. I mean, let's be honest. I can't remember a group stage they've had that hasn't been very kind to them. I genuinely can't think of a tie that they've had that's been sort of difficult for them until, when they got that PSG one, and then they almost coasted through it. But that was because it was Bottler versus Bottler really in the Champions League, and they came out on top really. So, that's the thing. If they got a tough group, say they get, I don't know, who could they get? They could get Barcelona and let me think. Or they could get Dortmund and Real Madrid or something like that. That could be a tough group for them. They could get a really tough group, and you know what? If they have a bad spell with injuries or something, they could end up in third spot. And you know what? Pep might overthink it and go for the Europa League instead. And then they can have a European trophy. Who knows?
League toppers can't be drawn in the same group, right?
But
like the league toppers can't be drawn in the same.
Yeah, no.
Okay, then they might get a lucky.
No, so you can't have. Yeah, you can't
Bayern
have.
And Atleti.
Yeah. So
they could get Barcelona or Madrid.
Yeah. So yeah.
Juve.
Yeah, they could get Barca. They could get Madrid. They could get PSG because PSG didn't win the Ligue 1, did they?
Juve too.
Yeah. So I mean, we could also get. We can't get Juventus.
They're all in our pot.
Yeah, exactly. So we've actually got a better option than, because I read somewhere that we have a better option than had we won the Europa League, where we would have been in the first pot.
That's right.
Which would have been horrible. So we can still get a tough team. Yeah. That's my fault. Yeah. Shouldn't bring up the Europa League final. But yeah. No, it could be an interesting Champions League, and just the thing is that at the moment I don't even know. They haven't even announced the group stage. I don't know when they're going to do that, but I think it's going to be just after the season starts. I think maybe just during that, just before the first international break. But there's certainly a lot of permutation to happen. We can't even really think about it until the groups go through. But even then, we sort of have an idea. I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. We have gone a little bit over what we were hoping to, but we've got a lot of things that we had to discuss, and we covered them. We've got some shocks. If Southampton go down, certainly it'll be a big shock, but one that certainly you two both predicted. But yeah, it could be a very interesting season in all competitions. But thank you for listening, and thank you for Arian, Suraj, and Jason for joining me. Pleasure talking to you as always, and we'll hopefully be looking for positive news in the transfer front, hopefully from a United side instead of a City side this week. But if you have any questions or any topics you'd like for us to discuss on the next podcast, comment on the live chat or on the Twitter or Facebook poll, which I will put out next week. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for all of our content.